Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, The Waves of Your Soul. In today's video I'm gonna be sharing with you which indie decks, tarot and oracle decks I would keep if I could only keep 10 of them. So I did the video about if I could only keep 10 mass market decks not that long ago, and because I am a glutton for punishment I also decided to do the video about keeping only 10 indie decks. Trying to narrow it down, being very strict with myself and figuring out which were the ones that I truly really couldn't see my practice without. This is a VR to Tia over at Garden Goddess Tarot and Meg over at Rose Honey Ritual. Thank you so much girls for creating this tag. So if it's your first time here, hi, my name is Marine. I'm a French tarot reader and a lover of everything tarot, oracle and self-empowerment related. Here on my channel I share a lot about decks. I love decks, they're amazing. Tarot decks, oracle decks, I make no distinction, I love it all. And I also really enjoy posting pick a card reading. If you'd like to see any of those, don't forget to subscribe. If you enjoy this video, you can leave it a thumbs up or a comment, it does really help my channel out. Plus I love chatting with you, it's always super fun. The names of those decks and where you can find them are gonna be in the description box below, as well as all of my social medias. Without further ado, let's get into my only 10 indie decks. I'm brewing some almond tea at the moment, which is so nice. It's getting a bit cooler where I live, which means it's gone from 30 degrees Celsius to 25. So for me it's an excuse to drink tea again, because it's gone from super hot to really hot. So I'm enjoying that. Just a little note before I get into it. About a year ago I did a video response to the hashtag only 10 decks, which was a response to Katie Flowers, who at the time was still doing videos, and in there I shared what 10 decks I would keep in the mass market all together if I could only keep 10. In that list there were indie decks that are still to this day my absolute favorite. I still stand by the whole list I made, and I didn't want to repeat myself because it's boring for you and for me, so I'm gonna leave it in the cards, the original response to the original tag, where you can check some of my absolute favorite indie decks that made the list. And so if you want to check that out you can, and see other indie decks that actually have been in my heart for years and years and years. But today I wanted to switch it up and share something different. I will also make honorable mentions at the end of the video about out of print decks that I would keep. They are not going to be part of my top 10. I've tried to make my top 10 only decks that are available and that you can still buy now, but for transparency reasons they are out of print decks that I couldn't see myself without and that are part of my absolute faves. So if you want to see those, they will be at the end as honorable mentions. Let's start with a deck that will surprise nobody. If you're watching my videos, if you're watching especially my favorites and my yearly roundups and things like that, you would very much so be expecting to see this deck in my top 10, because I absolutely adore it, and it's maybe even in my top 3 of indie decks of all time, so this had to be appearing. This is a Flow Tarot. The name of her shop is The Dreaming Lotus. Again, I'll put all the links in the description box. I'm trying to do that for all indie decks so that you can make sure you're getting them directly from the creators, so that you can make sure you're not getting scam copies, fake copies, because nowadays this is definitely an issue and we have to be careful. So this is a photographic deck, and I've got one of the earlier versions. So the version I got, it didn't come with a guidebook, it didn't come with a box. I think now it does. I'm happy with my version. It is a photographic deck that is purely dedicated to water in all its forms, and the names of the suits have been renamed to align with those themes, and the way to remember them is that the first letter of each suit corresponds to the first letter of the suit here. So Queen of Clouds are cups, C for cups, we have Pawns for pentacles, we have Waves for wands, and we have Snow for swords. And then the major arcana cards, I don't think they've been renamed apart from the Death card, which I think has been renamed Transformation, because water doesn't die, right? It just transforms, so that makes complete sense. But everything about this deck is about water, whether it's water in its ice form, in its ocean form, in its rain form, and it just speaks to my soul. This is one of my soul decks for sure. When I did my original video to Katie, I was mentioning that some decks are Horcruxes for me. For my Harry Potter fans, you know what I mean. in Harry Potter, Voldemort puts parts of his souls in objects, and this is definitely for me one of those Horcruxes. Like, I feel like I've got part of my soul in here because I love the ocean so much. My name is Marine, the name of my channel is The Waves of Your Soul, so that I don't think that's a huge surprise. I don't have that much water in my chart, but I've just always been very much bonded with the ocean due to the fact that I live on a tropical island, and it's just either the ocean or the river are both places where I can really regenerate myself, I can cleanse myself, I can re-inspire myself, recharge. And so this deck was a no-brainer. It absolutely has to be part of my favorite and my top 10. I love it so much. I got it last year. It was part of my top decks of last year. It's still a huge favorite. For me, it's a very healing deck. It's a very spiritual deck as well, and it helps me to remember to step outside of myself. Speaking of healing decks, let's talk about the Faceted Garden Oracle by Claire Mack. Claire Mack is a prolific indie creatrix. She has the Faceted Garden Oracle, the Illuminated Earth. I think she just came out with a tarot. I've got both her oracles. I don't have her tarot yet, but I might pick it up at some point. This is my favorite deck out of hers because I've got a very, again, special relationship with it. And this is what this tag is about, right? It's sharing with you the decks that have absolutely made an impact on my life. Like, they are moving me, they are surprising me, they are helping me in some ways or making me see things through. Sometimes they're challenging me, but they're always gonna have an impact. They're always gonna make something happen in my core being. So that's why all of those decks have absolutely made the list. And so the Faceted Garden Oracle, it is a collage style deck. The edges are holographic. And if you know Claire Mack's artwork, you will recognize it very easily. It's one of those artworks that is very recognizable. She's got her own style for sure. I find it very beautiful. This whole deck is based around the garden, plants, natural processes, ecosystems, and things like that. And for me, it has such a special place in my practice because this is my, I guess, go-to deck that I use when I'm navigating the waters of chronic pain and chronic illness. Unfortunately, I have to deal with, a lot of hardship in my health, a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges, a lot of disability, and it means that sometimes I feel very disconnected from the natural world and from even the world around me because I have to spend many days bedbound, I have to spend many days isolated, and this deck is my go-to deck to reconnect with the world around me, to remind me that there is a world outside of my pain, outside of my struggling body, and it helps me to recognize that whatever I'm going through in this moment in time is part of a natural process. It's part of natural evolution. So it helps me to link my pain or my symptoms or whatever my body is going through with ecological processes, and to remind myself that I'm part of nature. Especially if you're navigating, whether it's physical illness or mental health illness or anything like that, it can be very lonely, it can be very isolating, and it's important, I find, to reconnect, regroup, reground, remember, and even if the only natural being around you is a little fly, it's still part of nature, and so are you. This deck helps me to connect with that particular part of my practice that gets so much wisdom, so much grace, and so much healing and support from nature. So I love this deck very much. There's no guidebook, it's literally just one of those pamphlets with keywords, but I find that it reads very intuitively for me, and it always rings true, always helps me, always supports me, so I'm so grateful for this deck, and I couldn't be without it. So the way I approached this tag, I was trying to be serious about it. For once, serious enough in the sense that I gave myself some guidelines. So I thought, okay, what are the decks that I absolutely need for my healing practice? What are the decks that I need when I want to cheer myself up? What are the decks that I would need for if I can only keep 10, reading for others, because if I can only keep 10, I'd still want to read for myself, obviously, but I also would want to read for others. So one of the first that came to mind that could actually be doing both is one of my all-time favorite decks is the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum by Chase Voorhees, and inspired by the works of Lindsay Mack, who is his partner. So I have the first edition. You can now get this deck in lots of different forms. I had this deck for a good 3 years or 4 years now, so the editions have changed, but this deck is still very much in print, and you have different versions, like I was saying. I think now the main copies I have seen have mirrored back, or there's also a copy where you can color it yourself. Like, there's lots of different versions and they all look really good. But I've got the first edition and I'm so bonded to it that I don't feel the need to pick any other. This deck for me is, again, one of my all-time favorite decks. I've had it for years. I still use it so much. It's proved its value and I couldn't be without it, which is much to be true about all the decks I'm going to share with you today. The reason why it made the list, like I was saying, is because I can both read with this for others. I would be very comfortable reading with this for others. It's very intuitive, it speaks to me, and I also love reading with this for myself. So the reason why it's called Tarot of the Holy Spectrum, it's because it's based on the spectrum of color, and as you can see from all the cards, the colors are very vibrant. The reason why for me this is such an important deck is that it was inspired by Lindsay Mack's teachings. She goes under the name of Wild Soul Tarot, and she is one of the tarot teachers that I'm the most grateful for. I've done a few of her courses over the years, but especially at the beginning of my practice, found her courses and offerings to be really, really valuable. They have completely informed the way I read tarot, and are very aligned with my vision of tarot. And so obviously this deck being inspired by her teachings makes sense that I would respond well to them, because we share very similar views in terms of especially reading tarot for oneself, or and especially reading tarot in times of turmoil, and using tarot as an anchor and as a tool to help you navigate the storms. So I love the philosophy behind the deck, and I also love the artwork. I love the colors. It's RWS inspired, but there's definitely twist to it that makes it its own vibe. For example, this magician card, you can see them channeling directly from the universe. They are intuiting, they are channeling inspiration into the tools they have about to create something, to make something special. I think that's really beautiful. The tower card in this deck is potentially my favorite tower ever. I don't know if we've passed it. Oh, there we go. I thought we did. It shows the carnage and the angst that can be the tower, and with the dark colors and the lightning and everything. But the person that is falling from the tower is illuminated in a fetal position, meaning that they're actually protected by the universe, meaning that every tower moment you might have in your life is not necessarily a punishment, it's a rescue party. That's how I like to look at the tower. You're not being punished, you're being rescued. Even if it doesn't feel like that in that moment, something better is coming, and it's for your own highest good. And suddenly the towers feels a lot less threatening, a lot more empowering, and I think that's kind of like the good summary of this deck. It's empowering. Whilst I was doing my list, I was thinking, okay, a deck for reading for others and myself, check. A deck for connecting with nature, check. I've got the Flow Tarot and I've got the Faceted Garden Oracle. I need a Tarot and an Oracle because it's such a big part of my practice. The next thing I thought was, what about a deck for study? Because I love studying. It's something that, especially tarot, it's something that I do all the time. I'm constantly learning. I see myself as a constant student. I love beginner mindset. I don't think there's anything shameful about learning new things. I want to be learning for the rest of my life. I love it. So my study deck, I wanted something that was going to continue to help me push my study project. And this year I've been studying Marseille, Tarot de Marseille. And so part of my list, I wanted to include the Estrella Tarot, which is my favorite Tarot de Marseille that I have so far. A beautiful modern reinterpretation of the Tarot de Marseille by Ash. And I will leave Ash's channel down below, because she has a YouTube channel now and she has an Instagram, and she's amazing. I really enjoy her. She's super creative, super talented, so definitely go check her out. She is French but originally from Madagascar, so I love that also. I think that's why I connect to her art so much, because I'm also French and I live somewhere that's very close to Madagascar, so I think that's why I bond with her work so much. As I was saying, I wanted a study deck in my part of my list, and this year is Marseille study for me. I'm studying Tarot de Marseille, and this one is my favorite, so that's why I wanted to include it. It's bold, the colors are vibrant, it's modern, it is showcasing people from different ethnicities, different ages, different body types. Even the pips, they're colorful, they're fun. I love everything that Ash did here. It speaks to my soul, it's beautiful, and it just makes Tarot de Marseille fun. And don't get me wrong, I find the original historical Tarot de Marseille very beautiful. I actually have two coming on the way. I've ordered them, I've not received them yet. So I love historical Tarot de Marseille, I find them very beautiful, but there's something about the colors here, the vibrancy, the modern vibe of it, which makes me just super happy. Ash infused her own style to it. I love the choices of plants. They are tropical and gorgeous, and they remind me of the plants that I can find in my own garden. The pentacles have been reimagined as cowrie shells, and if you didn't know, cowrie shells, ancient traditions in Africa, were used as currency, so that makes complete sense to me. And I love cowrie shells. Again, it's something that I can find where I live on Reunion Island, so everything about this I love. The mages are beautiful. They're a lot more representative of people of color, which is something I really appreciate, and it's something we don't see in Marseille very often. There's also pop culture references in this deck, which is another thing I love. I love pop culture. I think it's fun, and so this is my cheeky, quirky, modern, vibrant Tarot de Marseille. So when I was doing my selection, I was thinking I need a deck for good mood vibes. You know, this is a tag that I created on YouTube, good mood decks, and it's something that's very important to me in my practice. Decks that give me good mood vibes, decks that cheer me up, that give me that kick of energy, that give me a smile, that give me a boost. And no other deck does this as well, especially for indie decks, as the Fortune Queen's Tarot, which is inspired by RuPaul's Drag Race, which is a fandom that I completely adore, and it's very much part of my life and my friendships. So of course the Fortune Queens had to be part of my Unwritten deck. If you don't know RuPaul's Drag Race, it's a drag queen competitions where drag queens compete with lots of different challenges: acting, sewing, singing, dancing. Wonderful. It's been going on for years. Over a day. Here are the backs and the sides. So I've got the first edition, which includes like some of the OG drag queens. There's now a second edition with other drag queens featured, because the franchise has grown exponentially. My friends and I started watching it. We've got it from season 3, I think, and we're now on season 15 for the US one, so we've got it very early on. And at the time it was low budget, and you know, the queens were successful, but it wasn't as global and as something that's super popular as it is now. Now you've got RuPaul's Drag Race US, but you've also got the UK one, the Down Under one, there's even the French one, Belgium, Sweden. Currently I'm watching Sweden, Belgium, Holland and the US. I've got 4 going at the same time, because drag queens are taking over the world, RuPaul is taking over the world, and I for one am very happy about it, especially with what's going on in America right now. Believe in the power of drag and the power of people expressing their joys, and for me drag is a pure art form that should be celebrated and should be shared and should be valued. And for me in my life it's brought me so much joy. So I have so many fond memories of watching Drag Race with my friends in London, of going to drag shows with them, and it's just something that brought me a lot of joy over the years, and this deck represents all of that because it represents all of the drag queens that I love and adore. And at the same time, it's an RWS, just a lot more fabulous. What can you not love about that? So this is the ultimate good mood deck for me. And of course, it had to be part of my Unlit Index because I need a good mood deck, and there's no better good mood deck than this. Every single card, you're gonna recognize a different drag queen. There's also iconic runway moments, and they're all quoted and instructed in the guidebook. So if you want to do a rewatch and find all the little Easter eggs hidden in the cards, you can do so thanks to the guidebook. So I love that. Look at Valentina as the moon. I love that. We have Evie Oddly for strength, which I think is beautiful considering her story. This is an iconic Drag Race moment. Drag is not a contact sport. Trixie Mattel as a chariot. A lot of you, I feel like, would be familiar with Trixie because she's got a YouTube channel now that has millions of subscribers. This makes me very happy because it reminds me of fond memories, because to these days, when I have a shit day or when I'm going through it, Drag Race is the TV show I rewatch, and I can rewatch seasons many times. It's one of those I don't get tired of watching. So this one is the ultimate good mood decks, and it had to be part of my list. Let's move on to another deck that I couldn't see myself without again, this time because it brings something so unique to my practice. I don't have anything else like this, and yet for me it's so useful, so clever, so brilliant that it has to be part of my list. This is a Spread Machine Oracle by Kimberly M. Chan. And Kimberly has done many decks. She's done the Panda Tarot and the Sparkly Lenormand and all of that. They're all really cute. I don't have any other of her decks, but I'm very tempted to pick them up at some point. This though I think is absolutely brilliant, and I'm so grateful that it's part of my practice. So this is a spread deck, meaning that you use this deck to create spreads, positions, that you can then use with your tarot or oracle decks, but you also can use this as its own standing oracle card. I don't know about you, but sometimes finding the right spreads for what you're looking for, it can be a bit tricky, especially when there's so many available online. They don't necessarily hit the spot, except sometimes I can get a little bit stuck and feel like I can't quite get exactly what I need to ask. Especially if I'm doing a spread for myself, then I have to deal with my own bias. Obviously, like we all do when we're reading for ourselves, it adds another layer. So this helps me immensely for that. The way the deck is built, as you're gonna see, is that you have a category at the bottom. Those are all the shadow work cards, meaning that if you're wanting to do a shadow work spread or you want a shadow work position in your spread, you could pick out of those particular cards, and on each of the cards you have the title, so problematic behavior and questions. After the shadow work category, you have the seeker category, you have the expansion category, the processing, the success, the light work, and finally you have focus areas. And they're all color coded and they all act as mini categories. Right now I've kept them separate so I can show you how all the mini categories work. So in that way, if before you are picking up your cards, you already know the kind of spreads you want to do. So let's say it's more a spread around seeking something and finding inspiration, you would use the seeker category. If it was a spread about how to manifest, how to expand, how to move on, you would use the expansion category. The processing category is really good for healing, for example, and the success, it would be great if you want to do a career reading, a creativity reading, or anything like that. So you can absolutely keep those separately if you are already thinking about the type of spreads you want. Or let's say you go to your cards and you are feeling some type of way, but you don't know what you need to ask. That happens to me all the time. Sometimes I want to go to my cards for advice, but I don't know what I want to know, and I don't know especially what I need to know. And I'm sick of doing the 3-card spreads or a past, present, future, or stop, start, continue, or even situation, obstacle, outcome. All of those 3-card spreads that we all do, they all work really well, but sometimes you want something different. Then I would go to this deck, mix it all together and pull some cards as much as I want, and then they can be inspiration for my spreads. Or if I'm constructing spread for my pick a card readings, then I would use this one as an inspiration. I've used this as also journaling prompts, like pull a card, for example, truth. And then here you have questions. What do you need to recognize right now? What tough love messages do you need to hear right now? And how can you gain clarity and insight? You could journal about this. You could pull then tarot and oracle cards about this. You could even from one card create several spreads out of this, and there's just so much to get into. I could not be without this deck, and I'm actually thinking about ordering the quest expansion that she created, that's all inspired by video games, RPGs, and that speaks to my soul. I'm a gamer, so I love the idea of spread prompts inspired by RPGs and video games and quests and, you know, all of that. So I'm very seriously considering picking it up. The last category is focus areas, and those are also really useful if you want to pick before you even do a spread. You can just shuffle those and ask, okay, what should be the main theme of my spread today? And for example, you could have community, society, and environment. This can also be used for wheel of the year, like if you're thinking, okay, what is the main theme I need to focus each month? I've done that before, and it's been really interesting. One month maybe I have to focus on connection, and then another one money, and the next one productivity, etc, etc, like trauma and academia. There's so much there to get into. I find this to be an invaluable tool. The guidebook is fantastic as well. It's so well written. Kim gives you all the information you need to get started, to use this for spread machine and to use this as a standing oracle. Overall, it's just fantastic, and it's so good, like I said, that I'm even gonna be picking the expansions. So the spread machine oracle, love it, 10 out of 10, amazing, chef's kiss. I'm over half of it, so let's quickly move on. The Outgrow Yourself oracle and tarot by Acta Spamman. I love this deck very much, just like I love all the other decks I'm sharing, but this, it had to be part of my Oni 10 for me. I don't think I would read with this deck for others. I could maybe on camera and stuff like that, but I wouldn't very much want other people to like touch this deck, even though I'm not normally like that. I normally don't really mind people touching my deck and stuff, but with this one I feel like I've got this weird protective protective vibe about it, that it's one of those, it's for me, it speaks to me. And so I probably could use this on video and stuff, but don't touch it. Don't touch it or I'll bite you. It's very inspired by teeth. It's a tooth deck. I don't read with toth, whatever, but I use this more as an oracle. As you can see, the tarot titles are at the bottom, and at the top you have oracle keywords, and that's what I usually go for, because somehow those particular keywords always ring true, and always do something to me and call me out. Most of the time this deck calls me out, and I needed that. I need one that's gonna make me cry, that's gonna make me regret my life decision, and that's gonna bitch slap me. I need it. We all need that sometimes in our life, right? I can't be the only glutton for punishment out there. Please let me know in the comments, I'm not alone there. But yeah, sometimes I need decks to call me out, like call my bullshit, and this deck does that very well, sometimes way too well, but I can't fault it. It's witchy somehow. I find this deck very witchy and very profound, and even though every single card is pretty much the same person who is the creator, there's so much depth and emotion to this deck, and it's just very potent. I find this deck absolutely extremely potent. I would not go to this deck for daily questions like what do I need to focus on. I totally could, but I find this deck a lot more potent when I use it for, like I was saying, introspection, but especially when I know I'm being completely delusional and I need a mirror being held to my face, and this deck does that very well. So I adore this deck. I've said it before, but it completely gives me Persephone vibes, because of the florals and the darkness of it all, and I love Persephone as an archetype, and so this is something that also, you know, vibe with that part of myself. This is making me so happy to see all those decks that I love so much. For now, I feel like I've made really good choices. Like, I don't want to toot my own horn, but toot toot, I feel like I've made good choices so far. I'm feeling reassured as the video goes that yes, those are all standouts, those are all amazing, and those all bring something special. Speaking of special decks and decks that make me cry, let's talk about the Reclaim Oracle, created by Marion Costantin. I believe she is French, but I think she lives in the US, so that's cool, we love French creators. This deck is super popular in the tarot community, and for very good reasons. So it comes with a guidebook. Every single page is a feeling or an emotion, because that's the key to this deck. Every card is an emotion, and you have a little text associated, which are very short but very profound and will hurt your feelings in a good way. It should come with its own trigger warning. There should be something on the box that says at your own risk, with like a skull and a danger sign that says risk of hurting your feelings and making you cry. Because oh my god, has this deck made me cry in the past, and I know I'm not the only one, because I've had many discussions with some of you about the Reclaim, because like I said, it's a very beloved deck, and wow, this is deep, this is potent, and this doesn't mess about. So every card is an emotion. You always see the same being that is going through those emotions. We've got lighter emotions, shadower emotions. This is a tool that I don't have really anything else like this. The only one I could potentially associate similar is the Poesis Oracle, but even then, the Poesis is more about circumstances, I think, or events that you go through, whereas the Reclaim Oracle is a lot more internal. It's a lot more about what's going on within, and those are all emotions we've all felt in our lives, the good ones, the bad ones, the ugly. But the way Marion has represented each one, like courage, for example, wow, this is so powerful, and every time I use this deck, it knocks me to, it just take my breath away. But I also have to be very mindful about when I use this deck. Look at that shame, because it's very deep and it can trigger the fuck out of you. I'm not gonna lie, this deck can be very triggering if you are using this deck to go deeper. And the way I've used this deck, I still need to do a video, by the way. This is something I've been meaning to do for months on my channel, but I just need to be in the right mindset to do that, and I hope you don't mind, and I thank you for your patience on that. I do really want still to do that video about how I use the Reclaim, but like I said, I have to be in the right mindset and I have to gather my thoughts. But just to quickly give you the main way I use it, even though there's a ton of ways I use it, if I want to explore how I'm feeling, I will usually choose the card that reflects how I feel. So let's say I feel, let's find a good one, content. I would pull the card content, I'd find it and I'd pull it out. And then I'd shuffle the cards. This time I wouldn't myself choose it. I would shuffle and pick a card, and I would ask what is hiding behind my content. What is at the core of it? What is at the root of it? And sometimes you could be super surprised, because maybe, for example, look, desire. Maybe that's what's hiding at the bottom of my content. It would be desire, and those two together, you're like, wow, suddenly it just illuminates, it makes you look at things differently, it helps you to either bring the shadow to the light, or it helps you to remember some lighter part of yourself. It's not a hopeless deck, it won't let you feel despaired or anything like that, but you do have to do the work to make the most of it, and it does require some introspection and challenging your thoughts and challenging what you thought to be true about yourself. And sometimes you're not in that space, especially if you're feeling sad or grief or hurt or angry or any of those things. Sometimes you're not in the mood, and that's okay. So I don't use this deck all the time, and I couldn't. When I need this deck, it always meets me where I am and always gives me what I need, and so that's why I couldn't see my practice without it. We have two more. Okay, this is getting exciting. Let's move on to the Energy Archaeology Oracle deck by Ashley Stinson. So it comes with its own guidebook, which is invaluable. For me, this is where the magic is at, to be honest, is the writing of Ashley. I find the artwork really beautiful, but for me, this is like a magical grimoire, and I couldn't use this deck without the guidebook. And this has to be part of my top 10 because it's another one that for my own personal practice I use a lot, and it brings me a lot. I wouldn't see myself using this deck for others again. It's one of those I wouldn't like people to touch, but maybe through camera and stuff I wouldn't mind using it. But I don't know, it's one of those, it's very personal, so I think it's one of those I'd like to keep for me for now anyway. It's called the Energy Archaeology Oracle because it's based on the human body, specifically on bones. So Ashley Stinson works a lot with the concept of embodiment, and I believe she's creating several oracle decks that are all going to be different realm. The first realm is the bones, and I think she's working on other ones to do with the muscles, the fluids, maybe even the fascias and stuff. So it's very rooted in biology, in anatomy, and it's still very spiritual and healing deck. And for me, this deck is very important, like I said, for my healing practice and for when I want to pull card for myself, especially because I have a strange, complicated relationship with my body. Hashtag don't we all? I think that's the curse of the century, to be honest. But when you navigate the waters of chronic pain and chronic illness, it can be easy to look at your body as the problem, or as an enemy, or as a challenge, or as an obstacle you have to get over. And so I constantly have to, and I have been doing this work for a long time, remind myself that my body is doing the best, and that they're my home and my ally, and that we have to work together, and this to achieve some kind of comfort and healing and well-being. And so this deck allows me to remove myself from the antagonizing talk that can be very appealing when you're ill, especially when you're repeatedly ill. Move into a place of gratitude, of honor, of grace, and of divine appreciation. And so this deck does all that for me. There's a card for each bone. I don't know if every single bone is depicted in the deck, but maybe she's done some choices. I think there might be like 5 or 6 that don't have their own cards, but most of them are here. We have even the different finger bones and toes bones. I love this one. It's one of my favorite cards, obviously, because we know I'm unhinged and I love a good middle finger. You could use this without the guidebook because the keywords on each card, because on each card you don't just have the name of the bone, you also have a keyword. So for the right orbital socket we have visioning, and that could be enough. That's beautiful, and I think that would work really well. But the guidebook has so much to say, so empowering and beautiful, that for me I just enjoy using it so much that I wouldn't see myself not use it. The sternum is vulnerability, and oof, this depiction gets me in the feels every time, because I have a lot of pain in my sternum. I have ribs problem and back problems and everything, and this is just, it just speaks to my soul, and at the same time it challenges me. I work with each card very slowly. If I work with this deck, I will usually leave the card out for days, weeks, even months sometimes. This is a slow burner. This is one of those decks for me that requires to seep in. It's like, imagine each card is a tea bag, then I need to let it infuse its wisdom for a really long time. And when I feel like the tea has gotten too strong, then I change the card and start working with another one. But it's not one of those decks that I pull for daily card insight or anything like that. It requires time for me to process. I have properties, so she links all of the bones with a certain element. You have what it means if it's in balance or out of balance. You have associated cards, because obviously bones work together, right? So if you have bone in your arm, then it would be associated with your hand and your shoulder and things like that. You have a little bit about the anatomy, like where the bone is. You have a bit of the energy of the bone, like is it a place where the energy is created, or is it just transmitting, etc. You have the wisdom, which is like your message, your guidance, and finally you have questions here that you could use for journaling, for example. So you can pause the video if you want to read what it says, and it gives you an idea of how the guidebook reads. This is an absolute gem in my practice. Thank you so much to everyone who suggested I get this deck last year, because I haven't looked back, and it's been so useful, so profound for me to use it. So I'm really thankful for all the recommendations, because you know me well and this has been wonderful. Okay, last deck before we get into my honorable mentions. Again, all my honorable mentions will be out of print decks, that's why they're at the end. Before we get into it, the last deck part of my list, we have the Telesma Tarot. Boo 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 boo! Hair horns! Oh my god, I'm so embarrassing. But the Telesma Tarot by Tara Koshrain. Did you guess it? I feel like some of you might have guessed it, because this is my favorite indie collage deck. I love it. It's gorgeous. It's over the top. It's fiery as fuck. This deck is a Leo, Sagittarius, and an Aries all together. It's obnoxiously large. It's obnoxiously gilded. And yet I love it. Here are the backs already. You know what you're getting into. Vibrant extravaganza. This deck leaves no crumbs for all the other collage deck, and I'm so here for it. Again, this is another good mood deck for me. It makes me so happy because I love collage and because this is very intentional but also very vibrant, very full of life, and like I said, just it gives me life. This is all the life juice I need. If I'm having a mad day, I need a bit of life juice, I need a kick up the butt and a bit of a fiery energy, this is the one. This is the one. I love it. There's not one card I don't like. I've worked with this deck a lot, and the more I use it, the more I see everything that's behind. There's so much there, there's so much touches. You can read this intuitively so well. The one thing I don't adore is the guidebook is very succinct, like it gives you a little bit of a meaning, but there's not much about the choices of the art being made. It's very like your traditional tarot meanings, and as you can see from some of the titles, especially in the major arcana, this tooth inspired. So for example, temperance is art, and like I said before, Thoth is not my preferred system at the moment, but it doesn't stop me from loving this deck so much. If I had to summarize this deck, it would be like, I can't cope deck. Like, I can't cope how beautiful it is, I can't cope how vibrant it is, how clever it is, and how just like, yes. Love collage decks. It was at the beginning difficult to pick my favorite one, but then when I actually sat down and thought about it, I thought, no, this is it. You rule supreme. This is the supreme leader of all collage decks. Maybe I'll do that tag in 6 months time and we'll see if any of the decks change. It'll be fun to see. Obviously I'll be receiving new decks in the meantime, and I only included decks that I've had for a while, that I've been using for a while, because I wanted it to be true to my practice. But you know, with new decks coming in and me using them more often and stuff, maybe in 6 months I'll do this again and we'll see if anything changed. Okay, honorable mentions, which by the way, last video I was on the struggle bus trying to say honorable mention with an H, because with my French accent I find it extremely hard to pronounce H's. And someone told me, you don't even pronounce H's for honorable, so I was doing all of that hard work for nothing. So suddenly I'm finding it so much easier to say honorable, so thank you so much to whoever told me. I don't have to try so hard. I love that. So honorable mentions without H's are my out of print decks, OPP decks. Put them at the end, so there's no FOMO created. Only those of you who want to see are gonna watch for art purposes, for enjoying the work of those artists, and for celebrating all those beautiful decks that are in the world. Even if they're out of print, they still exist and they're still amazing. So let's start with the Libenko. Oh my god, this is one of my favorite decks ever. I love it, by Emily Libenko. I believe that there might be something in the works as to potentially them releasing new decks at some point. I've seen stuff on Instagram. I don't follow closely because obviously I've got it already, but I have seen posts about this potentially at some point coming back. So I don't know if you love this deck, there might be hope. Go and follow them on Instagram and you'll see if you can pick the deck up, because I know this is such a wanted deck, and it's amazing. I actually backed this on Kickstarter at the time when I was still doing Kickstarter a lot. I don't do it so much now, but oh my god, this is one I'm so happy I did. So this is very fantasy inspired dark deck. It's not dark in colors, but darker in theme. Some of the cards are quite triggering. I don't find them triggering, I find them beautiful, but I know a lot of people don't appreciate certain cards. This deck is a bit like Marmite, I would say. The people who love it, we love it so much, and the people who don't like it, they really don't like it. So this deck will not leave you feeling indifferent. Personally, I find it extremely beautiful and extremely powerful. I adore this deck so much. It's one of my most used decks for myself. It's a deck I love for everything really, not just shadow work. I use it for creativity readings. The fantasy feel obviously speaks to my soul. If this is your first time on my channel, I love everything, anything fantasy related. This is one of my favorite full card. There's a lot of magic and beauty in these cards, but there's also a couple of cards that, like I was saying, can be triggering. This is definitely a queer deck, and we love that. I'm not queer, I'm a basic white cis girl. But I love queer decks and I love to support queer artists. It's something that is very important to me. And I see that in this deck, and I see how it celebrates difference, and I see how it celebrates standing in your own power and standing in your truth and shining your own self and being your authentic self. All of that is present in this deck. It's unapologetic, it is proud, it's fierce, it's extremely fierce, it's strong, and it's very bold. I appreciate all of those things, and I think that is to be celebrated. Let me try and find the harder cards, just so that you get a feel for it. If you are interested in finding this deck or picking it up if it comes back, there we go. The Lovers is definitely one that a lot of people don't like. I find it amazing, to be honest. I think this is a powerful Lovers card. It shows how sometimes we can be codependent. How are we feeding on each other, and how is that affecting the relationship, and how is it, and the fact that even the two beings look so similar. It could be them and themselves, right? It's not necessarily the relationship with someone else, it's the relationship with you and yourself. So there's so much to unpack in this card, and I find it extremely powerful. This deck is just, I don't know, it does something to me. It moves. This is one of those, it's over my dead body. You will prize it out of my cold dead hands, and yet I will still come and haunt you until you give it back. Next up we have another OOP deck. This is the Soul Shadow Tarot, illustrated by Ronin Panda and created by Yena, who goes as Soul Shadow on YouTube. So Yena has a YouTube channel, she has tarot courses, she does tarot readings, she has books, she has decks. She's a creatrix, okay? She creates, she offers so much, and she's very talented. So this deck is very out of print now. It's extremely hard to find, especially in the French community, because it was super popular. It was limited print runs, and because of some copyright issues, you're gonna see it's very pop culture inspired. We have Disney here, we have Star Wars and Pokemons and all sorts that obviously could create copyright problems. This deck won't be ever printed again. I don't think she'll ever be able to reprint. But oh, am I so glad I picked it up when it was still available. A deck I love, the energies of the month or of the week or anything like that, when it's to do with, you know, more like prediction type reading really, or a look at the month ahead or the week ahead. I love using this deck to read for myself and others. I love to use this deck for pick a card reading. This deck is chatty. It's a Gemini for me, for sure. It chats a lot, it has so much to say, it tells you stories, and I love it. I love all the inclusion of all the pop culture references, and some of them I don't know or don't relate to, but it doesn't stop me from enjoying the deck. I'd say like 80% of them I can relate, but mostly very intelligent. Yeah, this deck is very clever. We have Floki as the Fool. If you've watched Vikings, you know Floki, and he is the ultimate Fool archetype energy for sure. Like what Yena picked here, it's chef's kiss, perfection. So this is another one you would have to pry out of my cold dead hands, honey. I'm getting buried with this. Good luck finding it in my sarcophage. Let's move on. Another out of print beauty that is absolutely part of the Hall of Fame. It's an all-stars in my library. The Healing Waves Tarot by Nawan Jun Hasiri. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. I will say there is an oracle deck that has been out by the same creator. So if you are gagging over this deck and you feel super sad that you didn't get it, and it's another one that's really hard to find, I backed the Indiegogo campaign at the time, and they said that they were never gonna remake it, and they've kept their promise. I don't think they're ever remaking this deck, so it was very limited number and now it's going for crazy prices, but the person who made this has recently released an oracle. I think it's called the Wild Child Oracle. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I don't know, you guys will know. There is definitely another oracle by the same person that is still currently in print, so if you feel like super sad that you missed it, I think it could quench your thirst for it, if that makes sense. This one is purely ocean based. I think her oracle is more like general nature and stuff, but the artwork remains very beautiful, and so just wanted to put it out there. But this is called the Healing Waves Tarot. So obviously when I saw the Indiegogo campaign, I found it at pure chance. I don't even really check Indiegogo that much. Indiegogo is where a lot of French creators would post their campaign. They don't use Kickstarter as much as all the Americans or other creators. I find that French creators for decks use Indiegogo more, so I do check it out sometimes, but definitely not regularly. So when I found this, it was pure chance. I think it was fate. I just saw the name, the Healing Waves Tarot, and I was like, boop, add to cart. I didn't even check all the images. I was like, I don't give a shit. Give it to me now. And wow, am I so glad I got this. This was painted with seawater, watercolor and seawater, and obviously it's all ocean inspired, and wow, this is everything my little ocean loving soul could want. I said before, the name of my channel is The Waves of Your Soul. My name is Marine. I love the ocean. I'm a cliche, I know, but I've even discovered that if I was to go by sidereal astrology, which is a bit complicated, I don't really completely understand it, so don't ask me to explain it to you, but it pretty much looks at the stars in terms of how the stars are in the sky. So it looks at the stars, the astronomy, and not just the astrology. If I was to do my chart based on that, I would be a Pisces, so not an Aries, and that blew my mind completely. The day I found that out, I was like, whoa, I'm gonna need a day to recover emotionally from that. Because I identify with Aries so much. But then I thought about it and I thought, well, I mean, the universe might be trolling me, but damn, they're right. I do have a lot of Pisces energy in myself, because just the whole ocean loving, and the fact that I can be very emotionally overwhelmed. I have to work really hard on installing boundaries, and I can very easily diffuse myself in the emotions of others if I'm not being careful and not protecting myself and stuff. So there's definitely a lot about Pisces that, if I think about it, resonates, and it's probably facets of my personality that I've been maybe hiding more, and that is a good opportunity now to bring to the light and to observe and to work with. But this deck, I think it speaks to my secret Pisces. So I still don't know how I feel about the fact that I could be a secret Pisces, because I love Aries so much, and I think it doesn't take away from it. I think I can be both. I can be both a secret Pisces and a proud Aries, and that's fine. I think why limit yourself? You don't have to put yourself in boxes. I definitely will not put myself in a box. So I like this, and it helps me to, you know, work with that part of myself that may be the more emotional, sensitive, empathetic. Let's wrap it up with the Majestic Earth Tarot by J.D. Hildegard Hinkle. This is a deck that reuses pre-existing art. I found this by pure chance about 2 years ago, I think. They were releasing factory misprints. So this is technically a factory second, even though I can't tell you what's wrong with it. I've tried to look. I don't see what's wrong with it. I don't know. I don't know why I paid cheaper for it, but hey, I'm not complaining, okay? I mean, sure, I'll have it for cheaper. I can't see anything really wrong with it, so... But you've got some extra cards, which might be my favorite cards in the deck. They're beautiful for each of the elements. Got a guidebook, and then the cards, like I was saying, are all... On each of the cards, you have the name of the card, and this deck renames the cards a lot, which is one thing I don't love about it, because every time I pick it up, even though I use this deck quite often, it takes me a good 2-3 minutes to redo the math in my head about, okay, what is that again? What is the creature? You know, instead of queen, you have creatures, and it's one of those that the court cards are renamed, the suit are renamed, and sometimes my brain can't cope with that. I don't love that about it, but the artwork is just so delightful that I can't say anything really. Just shut my mouth and appreciate the beauty of it. But you'll see that you also have elemental associations, you have astrological associations and keywords on each of the cards. So especially if you need a clarifier, I find this deck to be extremely useful. But it's also for me my ultimate meditation deck. When I need to pull cards for meditation, path walking, when I need to, you know, put myself in the card in order to get some insight, or even just to get some inspiration, or even just to escape the world and put myself somewhere else and gain perspective, this is the deck I go to because of the nature of the artwork. It's beautiful, it's absolutely stunning, and I don't have anything else in my practice that fits the bill for, like, in terms of a deck I use for meditation. This is it, this is the one. There's a few of them out there now. I think there's like a walking meditation deck, there is the Tarot of Oneness that I feel would be good for that, maybe even the Spacious Tarot. All of those new tarot decks that put you in first person perspective I think would be really good for that kind of work. But here I just love the fact that you feel like you're walking in a museum. I lived in London for like 9 years. My favorite thing to do at the weekend was going to museums because it's free, which I still don't understand how, but it's amazing. Like, I remember the first time walking in there, I was like, really? Can I be here? Like, you don't want my money? I can look at all of this for free? Because in France, museums, you have to pay. I don't know how much it is now, but you know, if you want to go to the Louvre or anything like that, you have to pay. Whereas in England, it's free, and I remember, it's just the best thing ever. I thought, wow, how lucky we are to be able to see all of those beautiful paintings and artworks and things. Just to be surrounded by beauty for free is such a gift. So that reminds me also of all those times I would just go to a museum and spend the whole day there. So if you're looking for any of those out of print decks, I would say to either check out eBay or Facebook trading groups, or sometimes fate and chance. You have to believe in your own luck. The way I found out of print decks has never been through me trying extremely hard, and it's always kind of just happened in its own timing. Every time I've looked for a deck with a mission, I've never found it, and every time I've kind of like let things go and let the universe bring it to me, that's when it's happened. So I don't know if that's good advice, but that's how it's always worked for me anyway. Okay, my friends, this is it. These were my hashtag only 10 indie decks. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh my god, this video is gonna be super long. I'm sorry, I'm gonna try and narrow it down, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all of you, everyone who watches, who comments, who likes. Just you being there, it truly makes my day. I hope you're all doing well, and until my next video, I'm sending you so much good vibes, and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!